Okay, Unit 3.5 video, Classical Theory in Economics. Sometimes I call it Adam Smith's theory in class, even though it's not really Adam Smith's theory, but it's the older way of thinking, the self-correcting model of economic theory. There's going to be two theories we talk about. This is the first one, classical theory. The second one is Keynesian theory. That's the next video. So, classical theory, what are our assumptions here? Well, under this theory, we have to, the point of it is, the idea that markets, they are self-correcting. So if there's a recession, the market will get us out of the recession if we don't do anything. Okay, laissez-faire means hands off. The government is hands off. There's nothing to help the market. We assume that prices and wages are not sticky. They are otherwise adjustable. So look at the first question. Let's say that the market, MRK I have as market, the market moves from long-run equilibrium to a recession. So I'm going to make it so AD shifts to the left because that's most recessions that you're going to see. Show what happens to AD, AS, long-run AS, GDP, price level if the government does nothing. Don't forget to show what happens to P and Q. Okay? If you do all of these things, most of the questions you'll see will be pretty simple. So I'm going to draw long-run equilibrium. I've got APL, real GDP, long-run aggregate supply vertical, short-run aggregate supply upward sloping, AD downward sloping, and they meet at equilibrium. This is my quantity at full employment, and I'm also going to put price at full employment. I'm going to write F for FE. So I said there's a recession. I'm going to say it could be because consumer spending goes down, or GDP goes down, or net exports goes down, or investment goes down. And I'm going to show what happens in the short run. So AD1 goes to AD2. And I don't have to draw an arrow because it might get messy, but I've got AD1, AD2. Now I'm going to show my new price level. So P1, and I can show my new quantity, Q1. And I've showed a decrease in output, which indicates a recession. So then it says, show what happens to these things in the long run. I didn't write that, and that's what I mean. In the long run, what happens in the long run if the government does nothing? The other way they could say that is if the government decides to have no fiscal policy or no monetary policy. So any of those three choices, this is what you show happens. Classical theory, no fiscal policy, no monetary policy, if the government does nothing. Those are the three choices they usually give you. If the government does nothing, well, you have to say, what happens in the long run? Here's my long-run aggregate supply. We're over here as society. Remember, we're self-correcting. So something's going to bring us back to the QF, quantity at full employment. Well, what happened to price level? Price level went down. If price level went down, your answer is going to be, if the government does nothing, then workers will accept lower wages. Workers will accept lower wages, and because they accept lower wages, input costs go down, and when input costs go down, the short-run aggregate supply will shift back to the right at SRAS2, and our new equilibrium is here, which brings price down even further to P2, and my quantity is back to QF. And you have now successfully done a classical model from a recessionary gap where the market naturally self-corrects itself because workers accepted lower wages. So here's usually what they want you to write. They say, what happens to price? Price went down. Quantity goes, in the long run, goes back to full employment. If they ask the short run, then you say, well, quantity went down, unemployment went up. If they ask about unemployment now, in the long run, unemployment went back to the natural rate of unemployment. If they ask you to explain what happened, you're going to say that aggregate supply, short run aggregate supply, shifted right or increased because workers accepted lower wages, which then decreased input costs, you can go on to say. But that's it. You basically answered this question. That's covered everything. Got the right P's and Q's, and you give a nice explanation explaining classical model. What if there's an inflationary gap? In this example, we start at equilibrium. In the long-run equilibrium, full employment, boom, I drew it. Everything, get those points there. Consumer spending now increases, so big C goes up. or GP goes up, or NX goes up, whatever. So AD in the short run is going to go to the right. So now what happened? My quantity is going to go above full employment. We're going to Q1 over here. My price level has gone up, PL1. Now what do you think is going to happen? What's going to happen in the long run? Well, again, we're going to look at the supply curve and the change in price. In the short run, prices and wages are adjustable. So right now, prices went up. So if you're a worker, all the prices are going up around you. Oh man, how am I going to afford all this? I march into work and I'm going to demand a what? A higher wage. So when I demand higher wages, input costs go up, and now short run aggregate supply is going to shift to the left. They're going to hire less workers and produce less. SRAS 2. So what has happened? My quantity goes back to full employment. My price level goes to PL2. I did PL, PL1, PL2. So what happens to P and Q? Price level goes up. Quantity is going to go down in the long run. Or back to full employment, rather. And then what else could I say? Because, if I asked to explain, because SRAS went down because workers demanded higher wages. And you should also go on to say input costs for factories and businesses go up, and that's what caused the SRAS go to the left. All right? Classical theory, inflationary gap, recessionary gap, wages get demanded to be higher, or they get accepted to be lower in the other example. All right, hope you got it. Next video is on Keynes's theory.